Whoa, ho, 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 ho. Anyone watching? Anyone out there? Let's see what's going on. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Monday, September 21st. The live stream that is happening right now. The construction has quieted. They were hammering out there before. I think they were battening down some hatches or something. So as you can see in the little slideshow here, I've got some pictures of my giant table full of Necromunda terrain, which is my big project to get done, hopefully very soon, within the next few weeks. I want to have most of it done. Got everything I think I need to do it. It's all been primed. The assembly was long term because it was done over quite a period of time. The initial buildings, when the photo comes up again on the roll, you'll see the overhead, and the buildings on the left were all acquired when the Shadow War Armageddon game came out. So and then I bought some extra the Sector Mechanicus stuff to build onto that, and so that was built and primed. Basically the way I'm doing it, if you look, so yeah, you can see the stuff on the far left, the assets there that I call them, my assets. Yeah, so that stuff was basically acquired years ago, and you can see from the overhead it's actually got a slightly lighter tint to it, because the newer stuff was sprayed with some Rust-Oleum flat iron, which is absolute garbage, but it's perfect for what I want because it comes out and it spits and it's gross, and I just want like a metallic underfinish because I'm going to go back over it. I got some, went down to Canadian Tire and got some of these sponge brushes, which are great for painting terrain if you paint terrain the way that I do, and essentially dip it in the paint and splotch it on and give yourself a nice, you can a little bit, but I prefer just the splooching. So yeah, so I'm just going to move the mic a little bit closer here. And so yeah, so that's, you can see that I was spraying it out there. So it's all sprayed now except for the two little boxes of accessories, which are the ladders and the cover, so the railings for the gangplanks and stuff. So that's all got to be primed as well, which is a huge job, and then it's all got to be painted. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna use the sponge to sort of sponge out some color onto it. Then I will wash the whole thing with weathering pigments, probably something a lot like this, Vallejo weathering pigment, but probably purchased in a much larger container. And I'll probably do a mix of like black and brown. So it's really, it's got to be the underhive, but it's a Sector Mechanicus in the underhive. So it's got to be completely run down and trashed and what you would expect from Necromunda terrain. So what am I painting today? More Escher, because it never stops. You can see, should be a picture somewhere up there of a table full of Escher models, and that was just sort of for me to look at what it is that I need to be painting. Sorry, I'm growing my hair out, and it's quite a disaster right now. And I'm sure you all care about that. I probably should have shaved today too, you know, it being Monday. I didn't shave all weekend. Whatever. So yeah, so what I'm painting is I'm painting more Escher. So I did some work on them over the weekend, and I'll pull those guys down now so you can see. Let's switch over to the overhead so we can get in there. Boom! Look at that. So you can see I did some work on the gray, on their body suits, I guess. And it was pretty simple stuff. The gray primer, this is Mechanic of Standard Gray, and so it was, I just went over it with a contrast, the Black Templar contrast, and then went over that with some Reaper Master Series Ashen Gray, which is like a very blue gray, but it's great for highlighting black, especially the kind of black that I want, which is kind of this like worn grayish, almost black leather. Now I do have to go back over it. I'll go back over it again, not with the contrast again, but probably and I'll do that today, maybe on camera. So this is Dark Tone Army Painter Quick Shade. So what I want to do is basically pick out the places, because when I sort of put the ashen gray over top, I kind of pay attention to where it's supposed to go. I kind of try and do the outlining, but you'll see some places where it's on a little thick, and this I can go in and literally just shade it down back. I may use the Black Templar contrast depending on how this reacts to what I'm doing. But I play all that stuff by ear and just, it'll work. So here's another one I did. So another one of the Wild Runners, and you can see I did much the same thing. All the straps, all the black, her little top piece up here. This is the quiver's probably not going to stay black. I'm probably going to go over it and make it more like a worn dark leather, so like a brown. The bow I will probably highlight with like a bolt gun metal sort of thing, so it looks metallic in places. It looks pretty good the way it is, though. So here's two of the archers. And I've got the third archer here, and she has been done as well. Again, I need to go back over those blacks and stuff. So essentially all the models that I need to get ready for my starter gang I have worked on. And this one is one that I've worked on, as well as this one. And you can see I've put some red on them because that's actually what I'm going to paint today, right now. And that was some prep work that I did so that I can just sort of easily move from one to the other. So I'm going to start with this one. And I've already got, you can already see a little blob of red here. And that is one of my most favoriteest colors. This is Rust Red. It is a Reaper Master Series HD paint, MSP HD paint. I use this red for the red on my iron jaws, which you can see on the eternalchronicles.ca website in the galleries there. I also use that red on everything. It's my favorite red to use right now. My old favorite red to use was this Cavalry Brown, which isn't even a red, but it's a very rich and it highlights into a nice red when you blend it with ochres and things like that, yellowy mush. What do you call it? Mustardy colors. So yeah, so I'm going to throw some red onto her. So I'm going to grab my brush here. And so these are the Wild Runners. So their combat suits are a little bit different than a regular Escher Ganger. And I've decided to paint them a little bit different than a regular Escher Ganger. So I'm still giving her the red kneecaps. So, basically just start around, and I'm just going to paint the kneecaps red. Simple enough. And I'm doing red because my old Escher were red, and I like red. Red is best. If you've ever read that book, you know that red is best. So I'm just making sure to get around there, and these are this red is about a 4-stage process to get it where I like it. So this would be stage 1, would be just base coating. And now so on the other ones I basically did, like on the gangers I did like the breastplates because they look like they're armored. These girls I've decided that I'm going to do this little, like, I guess it's a dicky up here, the little red dicky. And I'm just staying inside the lines here where I've painted the black on the border, and if you make a mistake you can always go back and paint it. That's the joys of painting with black, is that it will cover anything. So this kind of makes them look like they belong in Starfleet, the way that it's sort of covers their upper chest here and shoulders and stuff, so that they are part of the command division of Starfleet. Or the security division for you, security and engineering for you original fans. I wonder if they ever acknowledged in canon that they changed that. Because it used to be the command was gold, right? Like, Kirk always wore gold. And in some things it was kind of a greeny gold. You almost thought he was wearing green, right? Because I don't know if that was just the color correction at the time or if that was the intention. But essentially he was command, so he was gold. Makes sense, right? And then science and medicine was blue, which makes sense. And then security and engineering were red, because I guess they were operations. And then when Next Generation came along, they switched it over to gold being engineering and operations, and that made no sense. Why would that be gold? That would be red. Like, your security guys were red, right? They were red shirts for a reason. Although I guess that meme probably came along later. But you would wear red. You want your security guards to wear red because you want them to stand out, right? You want everyone to see them, right? It's like the Scarlet Tunic, whatever. So yeah, so there's essentially just a little bit of red on her. So I'm going to put her aside, and I'm going to show you what the next step is, but I'm going to show you on this model because I've already put the red on this model. So my next step is I use this little secret weapon wash, and it's red-black, and again, this is exactly, I'm doing the exact same way that I painted on my Iron Jaws. So this goes on and it provides a great shadow. I've already got some on my palette. I'll just push my palette over. You can see a little bit here. The reflection, it's hard to see, but it dries quite dark when you put it on correctly. And the way to put it on, the way I put on any wash, is I like it, I'll put some on, and I'll just sort of move it around in a position, and then again put some on, move it around so that it's in position, and you want sort of the heavier on the bottom. And then when you lift her up, gravity's just going to do its work, and it's going to naturally pull most of the pigment towards the earth because we have gravity on this planet. So that will give you sort of a natural fade into the shadow there, and you'll see. And then when it dries, also like around these two little bolts that she's got on the back of her security outfit for Star Trek, you can see it pooling. You can see the wash pooling around there. And there we go. So I'll let that dry. And then through the power of actually preparing, you can see that I've already painted it on her. So you can see how it's dried and how it's kind of picked out a bit of the shadow here. So I'm actually going to drop a tiny bit more just in the crack here, because I kind of want to bring out the separation between the armor. And then way down here, hopefully you can see that where I'm getting, because I had to sort of get in under the knife there and drop some more shadow there. And then that looks good. She doesn't have much else red on her because she has different legs, because this is actually the body that you get in the core Escher box set that you're supposed to use for the heavy. Is this sort of like, she's much heavier, wider, bigger legs, larger feet, because I guess she could be holding a heavy stubber. Here, I'll pull up my heavy stubber and show you. Heavy stubber. So this is my Escher with a heavy stubber, and you can see, yeah, she's pretty cool. That'll be a much later addition to my gang, because heavy stubbers aren't toxic, so they don't belong in my gang. Everything in my gang's got to be shooting poison darts at you, or stabbing you with poison knives, right? That's kind of our shtick. So I'm gonna keep putting some red on some models while those dry, because I'm gonna grab her. Here we go. This is Enkindu, or Enkidu. I always thought it was Enkindu, but when I looked it up, it's actually Enkidu, and that is a ancient Sumerian hero god. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm just going to take some of my rust red here, and I'm going to paint those armor plates again, just as I was doing. I'll move her back so that she's nice and on the screen. No one's watching my stream, but I'm just going to keep plowing away. It's entirely possible this is not the best time of day to be doing it, and I'd be better off doing this in the evening. But I find that my idea here was that obviously people would be able to have something to watch on their lunch break. I'm sure that the engagement will be slow going, and I'm not expecting overnight success here. So on her, she's got, I'm going to put some red back here on her glove, because she's got some little hockey plates or something. Oops. Let me get that off there. Good thing about wet palettes is you have better control when using a wet palette over how much moisture gets on the brush. And using a wet palette tends to keep me from licking my brushes as much as just using a dry palette, like a piece of plastic card or whatever you would use as a palette. You can see that I've obviously used my desk here as a palette once or twice. Yeah, so there's her little segmented black back plates here, which I really like on these models. I think they're a cool looking addition to the Escher aesthetic. And gives them a little bit more armor. And then she's got a little plate across the back of her hand here, which I'm going to paint, just because it looks cool. And then we'll go back around to her front. And I'm just going to add a little bit more to her breastplate here. Just in the top. And then just kind of look at the model and go, okay, so I got to do her knee pads. So let's do those. And this is my matriarch, so she's a champion. She'll be the starting champion in my gang. And I've decided that I've actually changed it. So my gang name is now going to be the Daughters of Synthesis. And my gang matriarch here, will be known as Enkidu, and she is a Tigranian alchemist. So there's some sort of like order of alchemists within Escher, and they only use poison weapons. Their idea is to perfect the use of poison weapons, and that's not in the background. That's just something I made up for myself to give myself an excuse to give her a weird name and a weird title. Like she is some sort of so she's part of some like sect of she's not an alchemist, but she would be closely related to the alchemists within Escher, because she is her whole thing is that she perfects the art of war using toxins and stuff. Hence the needle pistol and the stiletto blade, which are both toxic weapons. All right, so I've got one more I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do red on. This actually model isn't in my starting gang, but I want to get her at some point. And there's another one that I want that I sort of converted. So let's talk about hangers on for Escher. So this is actually a scum model that you can get from Forge World. I swapped out her arm here so that she just has sort of a bare fist. And then her pistol here, which could be whatever pistol she happens to be pulling out of there. I'm going to say it's a needle pistol because she's armed with a needle pistol, because I'm going to use her as a Chem Alchemist Apprentice, which is a hanger-on that only Escher can get. And what she does is she reduces the cost of me buying alchemical concoctions by like D6 times 10 credits. And so it could be like up to 60 credits off. And you could make some big thing and get, so I think that's awesome. And I definitely want one in my gang. And I think she costs 75 creds to hire. So she'll probably be she'll be the first hanger-on I hire, because if I'm going all in on the toxic thing, I need her as a hanger-on. And the cool thing about it is that we've decided in our group that we have to have models for hangers-on, because there are scenarios where she's not really a fighter, but there are scenarios where she could be present. Like if I'm defending anything in my turf, there's a chance that she's there and I've got to protect her, and my opponent has an opportunity to basically knock her off, and then I got to go get another one. That's no fun. Or is it? So I just kind of converted this model. I added these little things from the new Escher sprue on her, so they're like little like chemical vials. And then I gave her a chem synth on her arm, which she actually can't get, which I thought was weird, that she doesn't come with a chem synth. All she comes with is a needle pistol, so I guess she's not, a combat chemist sort of thing, which is what Enkidu here would sort of be. She would be like the combat chemist, and she's really a non-combatant. She's an apprentice, so she's either been disgraced and been sent down to the Underhive, or she's trying to get attention to herself. I think mine is going to be that she was kicked out. They kicked her out from Up Hive, sent her down here, and they're like, you go hang out with the gangs, and maybe it was just she was sent by material support. But she looks like she has a bionic arm, so she's probably, I think I might do her as like really old. She's not very good at her job then, I guess, because she's an apprentice still. But maybe she's like an old ganger who went up Hive to be a chemist, and then it hasn't been working out, so they sent her back down, and they're like, yeah, go back to your gang and whatever. So this is the Death Maiden, so I'm going to do her entire chest plate, her entire breastplate in this red. Like so, because I think it'll look cool. And I want to tie her into my gang, so yeah. So the construction seems awfully quiet today, which is good, because earlier they were hammering out there. They were battening down. So yeah, I don't know. Someone's out there watching, but I don't know who. Oh, Tyrant of Badab. Lunch painting. Hey, Tyrant of Badab, how are you? Sorry, I'm trying to monitor the chat, so I have no idea how long ago you typed that and put that in. But hey, welcome. That's exactly what I'm doing. Is just like a lunch hour painting thing. I'm going to paint till 1 o'clock on stream. I'm going to talk about what I'm doing. I was talking earlier about all the Necromunda terrain that I have to paint to go for these, because we are starting a Necromunda campaign. And we're planning way ahead in advance, so we're actually going to start playing just like casual pick-me-up games of Necro. My friend Nico and I already did. We played one game with... I used an Escher gang versus his slave ogres because we just wanted to try that out. And it was one of the most ridiculous games of Necromunda I've ever played, which is fantastic because Necromunda is a great game to be ridiculous at. Essentially, his gang leader walked up. I was using this Death Maiden, walked up and just punched my Death Maiden in the face. Very first turn. Just pulped her into guts. And then the rest of my gang showed up and just started poisoning his ogres and making them do things. And then I played a card which essentially made him test for Dwellers in the Dark or something for an entire turn. So all his ogres, who are generally on their own anyways, are now scared of the kitties out there, my cats. And then I fought some other guys with some cats. It was a great game. So we're going to try and play a lot more just casual pick-me-up games so that we can get the rules down, so that when we do launch our campaign... Hello, it's so much terrain. It is a lot of terrain, man. And I'm... The good thing is that I've been really taking my time getting it to where it's at, which is just primed. But everything's assembled, everything's cleaned, like cleaning off mold lines and you can see in the one picture. I guess you can't see the slideshow right now because I don't have it on this thing, but yeah, it's a lot of terrain. But that's okay. It needs to fill a 3x3 table, and my feeling with building Necromunda terrain is I like to build upwards. So if I can get it like 1, 2, 3, 4 levels high, that's awesome. So we'll see. And you can see the way that it's divided up. I've got sort of like the larger assets into just sort of, generic shapes and stuff, which I think looks great. And then you just attach them, and I've got the little clips to stick so that the gangplanks and the walkways don't fall over and tip over. So, Tyrant of Badab. I bet the Tyrant of Badab. Is that you, Tyler? I bet that is. Anyways, so I can start putting some more wash. You can see that the wash that I put on her is pretty much dried now, and it's darkened up that red quite a bit. I'll show you an unwashed example. So you can see a bit different looking, and with the wash, it sort of helps define it a little bit better as well. So I'm going to wash these. This one. On this girl. So I'm going to put a little bit more of the secret weapon, red black. That is my secret weapon for painting red. Especially where I want it to have these nice deep shadows on it. And I don't know why, but these bottles are the worst, because look at that. Nice little overflow there. Alright. I don't know why secret weapon. Vallejo seems to have it figured out. Reaper seems to have it figured out. You need to figure out your squeeze bottles. They're kind of a mess. So, again, knee pads, and I'm pushing the liquid towards the center so that it tends to bead up around those little spikes on her knees. So that'll help to define those. And on this side, we'll do the same thing. Keep looking over. Again, like I said, learning to paint on stream is my big opportunity here right now. My challenge, as it were. Alrighty. So, yeah, so what's going on in the world, huh? Nothing much. At least we aren't cursed to live in interesting times, eh? Definitely not. So there we go. So that's the thing there. What do you think of the new train previewed yesterday? All pipes and that stuff. That was the stuff from the... I actually want to get a set of that for a couple of reasons. One, because my next table will be partly Sector Mechanicus, so I'm making these things. So I was going to base these Sector Mechanicus pieces. I go off on tangents, just so you know. I was going to base the Sector Mechanicus stuff, but then I realized that it's much better. The more modular it is, the better it is, because I can stack it, and I don't want to have anything that has to be on the ground level. So the the stuff that they previewed yesterday is just like the pipes, and it's more of an expansion of this Sector Mechanicus stuff. And I have a ruined something or other. I have another piece of terrain, and then I've got the Mars base Callus stuff, which is again more ruins. So after the Sector Mechanicus terrain is built, my next terrain project will be a Ash Wastes table. So that will have that will be more ruins, more of like an outposty feel, and I'll want that new 40k terrain for that, because it's all like the new 40k, all the 40k terrain works with all the other 40k terrain generally, and that's awesome, and that's by design, and that's a smart design. So I'm super happy about that. So you can see I just kind of laid on a little bit extra heavy down here, if you can kind of see with the wash, because I want it to be dark down there. That'll help me give you a nice natural shadow. And you can see over the front here, I've darkened it up quite a bit. What I'll also often do is I'll go back under, so I'll go underneath and just kind of dab a bit on and create some more shadow on her under boobs. There we go. And so she's good. And then I've got this one I've got to put some wash onto, so we can lay it on nice and thick. Good thing about these Reaper paints is they dry really fast and they dry really flat. So, and this wash tends to dry quite glossy, so it actually dries quite nicely over the flat and gives you essentially a satin finish, because you're putting gloss over flat, right? You're gonna get something somewhere in between. Maybe. I mean, that's not necessarily true. If you put a gloss varnish over anything, it's going to be glossy, but it may take a couple more coats. So there. So that's her. Better red than dead. Okay. Oh, the other thing I was working on a bit over the weekend is my kitties. So I got 3 kitties. 2 of them will be starting in my gang. The third one will come later. And only the wild girls can get these. So I was thinking about starting with 2 bows as opposed to this one with the whip. The advantage of the whip is that she's got a 3-inch encounter reach, because this thing's versatile. I'm gonna have to cough, so maybe I'll try muting this, and I'll just make sure I remember to unmute it when I finish coughing. All right, so I'm unmuted there, so I'm back. That was a good what would you call it? A nourishment break? A hydration break? Yeah. So I'm actually going to do a second layer up here, because I kind of want a little bit more dark around the bottom. So I'm just going to throw a second layer down on that, and then probably a second layer down on here. And the good thing about doing a second layer is, like I said, it dries fairly gloss, so the second layer actually will, the capillary action or whatever, will actually pull the second layer in better, so you'll get better washing coverage. And I just want to make sure that I'm defining the shadows, like here, like in, like there. That would sort of be in shadow a bit more, so I'm going to add a little bit extra there. I don't know. A paint's how a paint's, you know? So what else is going on in the world that we can discuss that's non-miniature related? I started talking about the Dune movie the other day briefly, and I was pretty excited about that. It was, yeah. I don't know. I like Denis Villeneuve. I loved Blade Runner 2049. I thought he did a fantastic job on that movie. Despite, I mean, it's flawed. All movies are flawed. There's no such thing as a perfect film. But it was about the best Blade Runner sequel we could hope for, you know. And so I'm really excited to see Dune. And I watched some pap piece that some pablum that what's his name? Not One of the late night guys. I don't know. He was interviewing them, and the guy who plays Leto, who was also in Star Wars, the last Star Wars trilogy. What's his name? Anyways, best movie I saw him in was the one with the robots. The guy making the robots. What was that called? Where he's like brings the guy into his house to do the Turing test. He's like some like super rich computer guy. I'll remember the name of the movie. Ex Machina. Yeah. So that guy. And I liked most of the cast, and I like who they've got playing guys. They look good. The movie looks good. It's not going to be the book, because it can never be the book. And there's no way that you could convey everything that needs to be conveyed in the book, because the books are really dense. But I'm excited by it. So that's something to look forward to. I mean, at least we got something. What's the impact of no robots in the universe? Why are you putting me on the spot with that question? The impact of no robots in the Dune universe means that they have thinking people called mentats, which are essentially they've gone through conditioning and training so that they think like a computer. Everything they think and everything they do is analyzed. So they're like constantly taking an analysis and running scenarios in their minds about possible outcomes and what so they've been heavily trained and conditioned to basically be human computers in a way, because the Butlerian Jihad, which was essentially we made a bunch of AIs and the AIs decided that they were going to fight us. I haven't read those books. They talk about the Butlerian Jihad in snippets throughout the books, and if you've read all, I would say the first 3 books definitely, and maybe the 4th book, you get sort of an idea of what happened during the Butlerian Jihad and why it happened. But he never comes out and basically says, like, this is what happened. I think his son did that, and some people don't necessarily consider the Brian Herbert stuff canon. I've never read any Brian Herbert stuff. I've only read the original 6 Dune books. And it was actually a chore to get through the 6th one, which was unfortunate. Chapter House was weird. So, yeah. So what else can we do? I guess I can go back to painting, right? So let's do that. Let's go back to the overhead and look at there's kitties. So yeah, so these kitties I basically painted with Reaper. Where is it? I started with this heavy ochre, and I decided that it was actually not going to work for what I wanted to do. It wasn't going on nicely. Some of the game color are a little funky, the Vallejo game color, and this one's extra opaque, and it was just going on, like, I thinned it out and then it was too thin, and I just didn't like it. What about Sasha Banks and Mandalorian? You're hilarious, man. I don't know. What about Sasha Banks and Mandalorian? Was there a trailer? Because I don't think I watched the trailer. No, maybe I did watch the trailer. I don't know. I'll watch the Mandalorian. I watched the first season. It was cool. I'll watch the second season. It was cool. So this is what I think I ended up using for them, and then I washed them with flesh. Yes, no, sepia. I used the GW sepia to wash my kitties, and one of them's been dry brushed a little bit. You can see sort of between these two. This one's got a bit more. Geez, I can't even tell which one I dry brushed. Yeah, no, definitely this one's been dry brushed. So those I'll have to work on, and I'm not sure. I kind of want to do some patterns on them. So if you see my Escher here, I did their sashes, kind of like tiger stripe in a way. So I may end up doing that on these guys, and then it could just be that in order for these girls to join the gang, they have to slay one of these in single combat and tan its pelt, right? And then they're allowed to hang its pelt off their thing, and then they're in the gang. That's I guess it's better than being jumped in, right? All right, so let's put those over there. Oh, and I didn't drag these out, but I got these out to show you guys. So these are 2 of the other hired guns. These are Forge World models. So they both have names. They both So they're not very... I don't really like the named Scum and named hired guns. They seem to all be really expensive for not... I mean, I don't know if that's accurate for hired Scum. But I like these models, and that's what's important. So I'm going to paint them up at some point. And I was going to try and convert this one into something else, but I love the pose on it. I love the model, so probably won't use her because she comes with a long las and an auto pistol, and that's not the kind of Scum I'd hire. Although long lases are cool. And Escher is supposed to be known for their las guns, and I don't have any las guns in my starting gang because I opted to go for needlers instead, right? So yeah, so I'm going to keep painting because that was the request. So I'm going to grab her, and now I'm going to begin, as soon as I can find the brush that I was using, or I'll use this brush. I'm going to begin highlighting this here. So you can see I've still got a big pile of the rust red, and I'm going to add to it. And what I use is what I use to base coat my kitty cats. Oddly enough, this mustard, I think it's called mustard yellow. It's another Reaper HD. And so I'm going to put a little tiny bloop of that beside my red. And I won't use that quite yet, but it's there for when I need it. So I'm just going to use just the pure red right now. And I'm going to try and control how much is on the brush there. And then essentially I'm just going to start highlighting. So I'm going to go around the edges here like this. And I'm sort of fanning the brush down. And you can see how that is affecting the... Here, so I'm going to go this way a little bit, because essentially I want to pick out that back plate, but I want to leave it darker in the middle. So now I'm going to add a little tiny bit of saliva so that I can make sure that that paint will flow nicely there and there. And then here comes a little bit of the yellow, which I'll just daub down here. We'll see. The construction guys are just outside my window now, so I'm sure I'm bound for noise at this point. And then here, and then I'll flip her upside down, and hopefully you guys can see this. I'm going to try and fix I want to experiment a bit more with my lighting and see if I can get it a little bit brighter down on the table. But you can see there now. So that's pretty well defined. Right, looks good. So I'm going to clean off my brush and go back to just pure red. And again, this time I'm going to go, I just want to hit this other plate, leaving the shadow sort of where the two plates overlap, and then right in there. And then on this side, same sort of thing. I'm going across here this way. You can't really see it because it's blocked by the knife. But I'm going across the bottom of the plate and then up the side of the plate here. Again, just to help bring out the definition of it so that it stands out. And then I'm going to do this little tiny one right above the small of her back. And I'm going to get the edge of that. And then again, we'll add a little tiny bit of yellow to brighten that up. And I'll probably end up doing another level anyways, but I just want to see where I'm at with this. I usually tend to do 1 or 2 quick blends, and then I'll go back over and do hit it with a bit more paint once it's done. There's the hammering again, so their lunch is over, obviously. So hopefully that's not too obtrusive or too awful sounding on audio. So there we go. So now I'm just gonna grab some of my red, and this one will be super simple to do underneath the gun here. Do her underboob. We're just gonna like that, just so that it stands out, so that it's hard to miss now. And then we'll do the other one as well. So this one I'm just gonna start about halfway up and just flick forward gently, making sure to pick that out, making sure to leave a shadow defined around the little strap that's coming down and blocking. You can see it there. You can see the little strap that's blocking her armor plate there. And then I'm going to go underneath and just kind of drag a little paint across it to help define it. And that really helps define that. You can see that it gets darker. You can see it getting darker around here, right? where this little strap is and where her shoulder meets, and then it gets lighter as it gets out towards the front. So we'll grab a little bit of yellow, throw that into my blend, and then I'm just going to hit right about there, just so that it creates some transition. A little bit more yellow, and basically hit the front like that. And yeah, a little bit red, a little bit yellow. Go this way a little bit. And then tiny touch more yellow, add it to the red, and just do the tip of her breast armor there. And you know what? I'm looking underneath here, and it looks like I didn't quite get my paint all the way in to where it needs to be. Not that anyone's going to be flipping this model upside down and looking, but I need to know that it's done. So I'll actually put some paint like that. And you can see I got a little bit of there. So yeah, so that's, take the yellow, and now I'm going to really add a bunch of yellow in here so that this is going right up to a nice orange now. And we're going to take that, and then I'm going to do, again, really want to define out the corner there, and like that. Probably get away with that, and then right in there, just a hint. And then on this side, same sort of thing, really hit that. And underneath, I'm not worried about, you know, if I slop a little bit of paint onto the knife, because the knife hasn't been painted yet. That'll be a later thing to do. And then a tiny little bit here. So I'm dealing with much more orange now. I'm much closer to the mustard. And then here as well. And then there we go. Boom. That's the red on her done. So I'll grab one of these other girls. How's it all going? Are you painting on a guild affiliation? Are you planning on a guild affiliation for the girls? I could, the water guild, but I have to figure out how to make models for the water guild. I've seen some really cool conversions for water guild, and I'd like to do water guild. That's their like legal thing. I have a feeling that my plan for these girls though may involve them becoming outlaws, and then they will ally with cold traders. The only problem is you lose a lot when you go outlaw. So like my hanger on there that I was going to get my little alchemist, my little assistant alchemist girl here. If she's part of my gang when we are legit and we turn outlaw, she leaves. Right? I lose her. I don't lose brutes, but I can't hire new brutes. So if a kitty dies, I can't get a new kitty. So oh no, I can get new kitties. I can't get what are the brutes? The big robots and the chimeric, which is the Escher like giant kitty. So yeah, so there's advantages and disadvantages to going outlaw. The cool thing is that I can make an allegiance with cold traders, and then I can get shuriken catapults and Eldar armor and stuff. You basically get access to Xeno tech. Because you're outlaw, so you got no problem using heretical technology. So here, you can see I've sort of left the bottom part of the knee pad dark and put this paint along the top of the knee pad, creating sort of some natural shadow. Same thing, I'm going to do that over here on this knee pad. I'm just essentially going to paint the top half of the knee pad and essentially painting less and less as I go, but paying attention to the edges. And then here, this is going to be the tricky part because I haven't actually done this, figured out sort of but I guess I'm going to red like that. And then you want to get in between those bolts. I'm going to have to paint those at some point. They're really small. One thing I'll say, having spent most of this year painting much older models, like 30-year-old metal models, the level of detail when you go back to start painting plastics and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like all these little things that I have to paint now that just didn't exist on models 30 years ago, you know, because there just was no way to do it. So there's an innocence to painting old lead for sure in a lot of ways, and the proportions are vastly different as well. So I'm just painting the little spikes on the back of her arms. Those may end up silver, but I may just leave them red because they look kind of cool. You can see that there. Yeah, looks all right in the feed. It's hard for me to know what my feed looks like unless I actually open up and start watching myself in real time. But I don't want to really spend too much time doing that. Hopefully it, because when I look at what it looks like on my screen, it doesn't look that great. And I don't know if it's the fault of this camera overhead or what. But it just, it's unfortunate. They're battening down the hatches out there. Literally, they're hammering in batten because they're waterproofing. So they are, in all senses of the words, they are battening the building down out there. All right, Enkidu, let's do you. Whoops, you were once the. I like the idea. I like the name, Daughters of Synthesis. Daughters of Synthesis. I have a lazy Torontonian tongue. I was trying to explain that to my daughter the other day, like, because she says, "Why don't we have accents?" And I said, "Well, we do have accents. You people can hear our accents if they." Hello, Lorand. Welcome. People from Toronto absolutely have accents, and I can tell the difference between someone who grew up in Scarborough and someone who grew up in Mississauga, like the east end and west ends of the city. You can hear it in their voice. I grew up downtown, so I have the laziest of tongues. My tongue just does not want to move to say words, if at all possible. And I was explaining that to my daughter yesterday, where we were talking about Toronto, and how if you're from Toronto, you always drop the second T, and it's more like Tirana than, But there was another word that we were discussing my pronunciation of, and that's sort of how the subject came up. So if you're just joining us, which one of you is just joining us, I'm painting Escher, and I'm painting the red on my Escher right now. So I'm using Reaper Master Series Rust Red for this red. I've washed it with Secret Weapon Red Black or Black Red. Is it red black or black red? It's red black, which like dries like almost like a purplish blue. You can see it sort of on the back here. It looks really good. And this is the exact same red that I used on my Ironjaw Orcs, which you can go see in my gallery at eternalchronicles.ca. You just go there and click on the galleries, and there's a whole pile of my painted miniatures. And so many more to come. So, and again, I'm just going to highlight down here. So you can see that the way that the wash is dried is quite subtle. So that when I go back over it with this color, the blend is almost naturally there for me, right? How's that looking? Looks all right. So what's new and what's good in the hood? Yeah. I'm never really sure what to... I gotta find something to fill these quiet moments with, where I'm just concentrating on painting. Right now, those quiet moments are filled with people hammering, and that's probably not the desired effect here. So you can see I've just sort of added some red on there. Hopefully the camera picks that up. So I'm gonna mix in a tiny little bit of my mustard here to make my orangey yellow. And I'm gonna go back over. So on the front here, I'm essentially limiting it to what I would call her boob horizon. Let's call it that. So essentially the transition from over boob to under boob. Get a bit more, clean my brush here. Get a tiny bit more of the pure rust red to sort of blend that better. And this is just how I paint. You don't have to paint this way if you don't want to. Like many things in my life, I'm an autodidact when it comes to painting. I essentially trained myself because I didn't have anything. You know, I was painting even before I discovered White Dwarf magazine. Not seriously painting, because it was when White Dwarf magazine sort of came out that I actually like started to pay attention to what they were doing. But I didn't have a Games Workshop store that I could go to and learn to paint. I didn't have a YouTube that I could watch so that I could watch painting tutorials. Essentially, I just had to make it all up. I think my buddy Ash and I discussed it on his podcast once, where he was talking about how he thought he invented dry brushing, and he called it overbrushing, and then he went into a GW store and saw a GW staff member teaching a kid how to dry brush, and he was so upset that he hadn't actually invented it. And it's like, those are the kinds of stories that's what the Eternal Chronicles is all about, man. Bad stories. So yes, I gotta get more orangey here. We're gonna get a little bit more yellowy, a little bit more orangey, because you can see I just ever so subtly, you're just adding a little bit of a highlight to it so that it will stand out. And I discussed this the other day about painting things so that they look good on the table and painting things so that they look good 6 inches from your face. And I used to paint things so that they would look good 6 inches from your face. And one of my biggest hurdles in developing as a painter was learning how to accept painting things so that they looked good on the table. And how I'm still challenging myself with that very thing is painting things so they look good on the table, not necessarily so they look good in your hand, because you know, you get to a point where you're hitting a point of diminishing returns with how much detail or how much attention to, you know, detail you're putting in. I'd love to get Nico on here and have him show us how he weathers his models, because he's been painting with oil weathering lately, and his stuff is really impressive. My friend Nico, probably my oldest friend, and so the stuff that he's doing, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna steal a bunch of the pictures that he posted on our Discord, and I'm gonna add them to my thing. I'm not gonna tell him that I did it. I'm just be like, I don't know why your models are suddenly in my galleries. It just happened, right? Because his stuff should be shown off, because he's a really good painter. And he should be celebrated for it. Everybody should be celebrated for their painting. So you can see I'm just kind of doing the tips here. And again, it's almost an exaggeration the way I'm doing it, because again, you want it to be able to stand out from far away, so you can see that I've really gone from like a deep red to almost a bright yellow, but not really, because it's quite muted because I'm using that mustardy yellow. How old is he? Badumtis. How old is who? Nico? He's just shy of a year younger than me. But we don't look it. He looks, because I have a secret. And it's not just genetics that I look 20 years younger than I actually am. It has to do with blood and full moons and such. So here we go. So now I'm going to paint this girl, and just doing the same thing. So on the knee pads, I'm essentially only putting this paint on the top half and drawing it towards the center, so that I create a natural shadow there. You can kind of see the way the knee pad is. At least it will be once I apply a flattening varnish to it, because that's the other thing, is that when you're dealing with all these different types of paints and mediums and washes and stuff, they all dry differently. Like I said, the rust red dries quite flat, but the red black wash that I put over it dries a little glossy. And then once you after that, I'll probably hit it with a varnish, a flattening. So I may use Army Painter Anti-Shine Matte Varnish, or I may use Reaper Master Series Brush On Sealer, which I love, but the Brush On Sealer doesn't dry super flat. What's with the rules for bows? Is it like a rainbow bow? A rainbow bow? No, it's not like a rainbow bow, like with different types. Oh yeah, well they can have. There's 3 different types of ammo they can get. So there's a regular arrow, there's a poison arrow, there's an explosive arrow, and there's an acid arrow. So I guess there's 4. The explosive arrow is pretty cool because it literally is a blast template. Like you hit the model and it goes boom. There's no like smoke arrows or anything, which that may be too powerful a thing if it's like a Rambo bow. Yeah, it's exactly like a Rambo bow. So I was gonna convert one of them. They had those little canisters, and I was gonna try and convert one so that it had a canister on the front instead of an arrowhead. But you know, we'll see. The bows are really useful. Limited range. Major minuses to hit at long range. I think they're -1 at long range, but they're +1 at close or something. Something like that. So they're only 18-inch range, I think. So that you still have to get in close with them. But I did buy, for my starting gang, the girl with a bow. We'll start with poison arrows, of course, because toxin. Yeah, so they're all Hawkeyes. I could have 3 with bows in my starting gang, but I did want some numbers, because even though these girls are prospects, they're actually quite expensive. Well, once you give them the bow, they're quite expensive. So a regular ganger is 50 creds, and these girls are 45, so they're only 5 less than a regular ganger, and I think what they lose for that is they lose access to a lot of weapons, and they lose a point of strength. These girls are only strength 2. Whereas my regular Juves are strength 3. But strength doesn't matter when you're carrying a poison knife. When you're carrying a knife with hobo piss on it, it doesn't matter. I'm sure that's where the Escher get most of their toxins from. It's just hobo piss. So yeah, so here's my beast handler one. I love this that she's holding up the leash and showing the collar. And if you notice, this is the kind of OCD I have. This is the kind of hobby issues I have. So because see this, how this guy's got a collar? He's got a cool little collar on. And see how this guy doesn't have a collar on? You know why he doesn't have a collar on? Because his collar is on this leash. If he was wearing a collar and this collar's on this leash, would he got 2 collars? No, that's not the way it works. That's not the way my mind works. I was like, I can't put a collar on that guy because the collar's on her leash. She's let him off the leash. She's literally, who let the cats out? Meow, meow, meow. That's terrible. So, here we go. And hitting just the tops of it this time. Again, I want to create a nice gradation. You can see there on the kneecap that the top of the kneecap is quite light. And the bottom of the kneecap is all dark there in shadows. Because essentially what you're doing is, when you're painting a model, is you're painting shadows, right? You're trying to make the model look like it's not 2 inches tall, right? You're trying to make it look like it's actually a 5-6 foot tall human being. So you're trying to build in those natural lights and stuff. Did I already do? I think I did. So I'm just gonna hit some of this yellow on here, because again, I want it to, you want it to stand out here when she's working for Starfleet. I'm gonna go across the top. Oh, and of course the guys are now having a conversation right outside the window. So let's listen. Let's eavesdrop in on what they're talking about. I think earlier one of them was talking about his mother or his aunt needing help to walk upstairs. And I was like, oh, at least you care. All right. So I have Hawkeye. That's cool. That is cool. So who else do I got to paint? Well, I haven't even put red on her, so I can do that. Her red is essentially done. Again, when I look back at it, I go, okay, so how well does that stand out? And I'm going to actually take a tiny bit more of my mustard here and drop it on. Let's get that point so that's nicely defined. And then when I do actually go in to paint the stiletto blade that she's also got, which she might not be starting with. I can't remember if I actually paid, because stiletto blades aren't cheap because they're toxic weapons. Like, I got to buy her a fighting knife, but then it's not toxic, right? And the whole point is that it's supposed to be poisonous, right? Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure you're right, Loran. If you do drop something in Necromunda, it becomes poison. There's no 5-second rule in Necromunda. If something hits the ground in Necromunda, it belongs to the ground now, right? Happy birthday to the ground. So I'm just gonna do this girl, her parts real quick here for the red. So kneecaps, and I want to get another box of these because I think I might actually want to use these bodies to make my little sisters. Because normally I use these two as my Juves, but they're very much like full-grown women. I was even thinking of just swapping out their heads for some of the more juvenile-looking resin heads that you can get from Forge World, so that they'd be more Juve-like, but they're so, you know, like these would just be like good basic gangers. But if you took like one of these bodies and gave her a pistol and a toxin blade, it might look a bit more Juve-like. I don't know. Then again, I think I was talking to someone in a chat yesterday. Actually, I was talking to Dez in chat yesterday, and we were talking about how like Juves in old Necromunda were basically kids, right? Whereas Juves in new Necromunda are more just like new gang members. They can be young, but they could be, you know, just whatever. They're just new gang members. They're prospects. They're potential new gang members. So they're a little bit different. And Juves in new Necromunda are also have more potential, more long-term potential than gangers, because they can get skills, and so you trade off some stats for that. Although Escher don't trade off much. I'm trying to remember what the difference is between. I think our weapon skill is the same as a ganger, so our weapon skill is 3+, but I think, or it's 4+, I mean. But our ballistic skill is 5+, so we're missing a point of ballistic skill. I think they also, the Juves also, no, I think they're the same speed. Or they may be 6. I know the Wild Runners are 6, which is amazing to have these models have a 6-inch move, which is why I would just take more Wild Runners, you know. As good as Juves are. What Juves are cheap, right? They're 25 creds. So a Juve, my Juves come in around 50 because I buy them a 5-point stub gun and then a 20-point stiletto knife because they need the poison weapon, right? So there we go. So that's, I'll have to wash that when it's nice and dry. Get out my Death Maiden here. So this is of course the big poisoner that I want for my gang, but I'm not going to start with her. I want to see if I can get her in a unique, interesting way. There's a tactic card that you can play that when one of your gangers dies, you can create a Death Maiden. And having the Chemist hanger on, the other advantage of having her is that if any of my characters die, or if any of my models, any of my gangers, I think even gangers can do it. It's just how many advances they have. So you roll a d6, and as long as you roll under the number of advances they have, you get a free Death Maiden added to your gang. So the more experienced they are, the better, the bigger chance that they'll come out as a death. You'll get a Death Maiden out of them. So that's awesome. So I kind of want to see if I can get one that way without having to just fork over a bunch of creds and get one, which just feels unnatural. I feel like this is the kind of thing that you shouldn't start with and that you should make, essentially. And there's a whole lot of other things I would rather spend creds on, like bigger kitties, like toxins, because those toxins can get, when you start stocking up on elixirs, because they tend to only last one game, I believe. So when you start stocking up on elixirs, it can get quite expensive, because some of them are really good. Like there's one that's basically just like +2 to my roll, so I'm wounding you on 2+, and I'm not just wounding you on 2+. I'm wounding you on 2+, and if you fail your armor save, then doesn't matter how many wounds you have, I just get to straight make an armor roll for you right away, which is kind of awesome. I love Necromunda. What a good game. Yeah. So let's... And again, back here, I'm sort of adding in a bit more because I want it to stand out. And I may go back over and wash this again because I see there's not quite a great deal of separation on the back here. So here's a tip for you kids. You can always go back and paint over things. That's something I try and teach my daughter. She'll paint something and then she'll get really upset it doesn't look right. And I'll say, you can always, the great thing about paint, you can just put more paint on top of it, right? I need to finish this. I worked on this a bit more. I finished my coin. Yay, you can see like I'm really happy of like my minor achievements here. So I finished it and I put a gloss coat on it, and the gloss coat kind of dried a little funky. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably actually take it outside and I'll spray it with some dull coat. And I think that'll make it look, at that point it will look more like a coin. It doesn't feel like a coin when you hold it because it's plastic. But yeah, so I got that. That's a little priority coin or whatever. And this is the little, I think there's actually a way of triggering this in a game, or it's a tactical card. I just figured it needed to be painted. So I painted it. I still have to finish the tentacle. Essentially, I painted this part. So I made that look like a nice rusty manhole. Rusty manhole. I remember that club. Good times, better days. So there's 4 people watching. Cool. I don't know who these 4 people are. Well, I know who maybe 2 of them are. But yeah. So I guess I'm just gonna keep painting for another little bit. I've done my requisite hour. I'm at an hour and 10 minutes, but more like an hour and 8 minutes live because I think it sat on the thing for a bit. If they start banging out there, there's more construction resumes out there. I'm just gonna shut it down. Shut it down. I do notice some things on here. I need to paint some red here because I forgot to do it the first time. So, and actually I can see here now, I don't know if you saw that, but that was missing some paint on it as well. That's why I love wet palettes, because you can plop your paint down and then you usually have it for, you know, at least the rest of the painting session for the rest of the day. So we'll give her a nice little hand plate across the back there. I like this black and red. It looks good. You know. I'm going to finish off her breastplate here. So yeah, I don't know, answer any questions, or if you have any suggestions about what you want me to do on the channel. I'll tell you sort of what my 6-month out plan is. Obviously, I'm doing Necromunda right now. And when I'm done doing Necromunda, well, not when I'm done doing Necromunda, but in October, I will be painting something completely different. It is Orktober. It is a significant month for me and my people. And so that looks all right. That's right. I was gonna rewash the back. So let's do that. Grab some of my red black here, secret weapon, and go over the back because I really want that to be beetle shell like. So yeah, so in October I'm going to paint orcs. What kind of orcs? Well, maybe you'll have to wait and see. They could be orcs with a C, they could be orcs with a K, they could be orcs with an Uruk, UUKK, whatever. Oh, however, GW's copyrightable version of orcs now is spelt. There we go. And yeah, so we'll come back to her. She looks cool. I didn't like these Death Maidens at first. Oh, I was gonna do all that red. Man, now I need to get more of my red. I've pretty much used the bulk of it here. So we'll squeeze out another little bit, and that's cool because I'll need that anyways. And then there's the drilling. So yeah, well, I'm just gonna keep painting. You can listen to the drills. If it's horrible, I don't know, you may like it. You may be one of those ASMR types who loves the sound of drilling. But they are literally drilling 3 feet away from me. I can feel it probably more than you can hear it because my whole floor is vibrating now because it sounds like a big sander, and they're grinding away at something. So that's cool. I like that. I like the red shoulder pad. I like the fact that I can do a lot of accented red on her, because the Death Maidens that they do in the book are very like white. They painted them in like creamy whites and blacks, the colors of death, right? Obviously, right? So, but this girl, she's part of my gang. So she wears the red of the synthesis red, the daughters of synthesis. Yes. I think that looks badass. Yeah, look at that whole arm with the red armor all the way down it. Definitely gives me an excuse to give her mesh armor. I could even do her knees in red because, you know... you know what? Let's do it. Why not? What do we got to lose, right? So I'm going to paint her kneecaps here, but I'll leave the outlines black. And we'll paint those kneecaps on her boots. And we'll do those like so. Oh yeah, that's Flash. That's Flash, man. We'll do the other one on the other side. So there's 3 people watching now. So I picked up a viewer, then I lost a viewer, then who knows, right? I'm a little low energy today. Hopefully tomorrow I'm back up on high energy. Had a pretty busy weekend actually. So I'll try and I don't know, pep myself up in some way so that I'm a little bit more exuberant. You know, give me something to talk about, whatever. But I appreciate you guys asking me questions. Maybe I'll go back and answer. There is no sufficient dick space. Well, I'm going to kill the chat there because looks like my... I need to clear some space on my discs because I have no idea how long this video has gone. But so I have now stopped recording. So that's going to be that. And take it easy. Hope you enjoyed my hour and whatever today. And yeah, I'll see you back here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.